When we calculate the measures of all the angles and all the lengths in a right triangle, we solve the triangle. So when we're talking solve the triangle, we're saying find everything about it, all of the side lengths and all of the angles. We can use any of the three primary trig ratios to do this. So for this one, we have tan, sine, and cosine at our disposal to start solving. This one doesn't give you any information, so we're not actually going to be able to solve that. But if we had some angles and some side lengths, we can start using that. You also have a couple of other tools at your disposal besides the trig ratios. One of them is the Pythagorean theorem. Do you guys know what that is? Pythagorean theorem. C squared equals C squared equals A squared plus B squared. You can use that when you have a right triangle. So if you have two side lengths, you can find the other one using that. And the other thing that you have at your disposal is called the triangle angle sum theorem. You may not have heard it by that name before, but the triangle angle sum theorem says that all three angles in a triangle add up to 180 degrees. So these are the three things that we're going to use when we're asked to solve a triangle. Trig ratios, Pythagorean theorem, and the triangle angle sum theorem. And we're going to decide which ones what to use based on what information we have. Everyone's going to be a little bit different. So here's a question that you could be asked. It just says, solve this triangle. When I'm given a question like this that says solve the triangle, here's what I always do. I list all of the things that I need to know. I need to know the measures of angle D, angle O, and angle G. And I need to know the lengths of side D, side O, and side G. You're always going to know three of those right away. If it doesn't give you three pieces of information, then you can't do the question. So you're going to know at least three of them right away. Which ones do we know? We know the right angle. So we know angle O is equal to 90 degrees. So I'll just fill that in. This is kind of my list. I'll know I'm finished when that list is all filled in. What else do I know? Sorry? What else do you know? The hypotenuse, which side is that, D, O, or G? You could label it DG, like capital D, capital G, but we've been calling that O, opposite, because it's opposite of angle O. So that's going to be 18. That's the way we label them. If this is angle O, capital O, then this is side O, lowercase o. If this is angle D, then opposite is side D. So I'll just fill that in. That's D, that's G, and that's O. We may not really have talked about that before, but that's how we're going to label them. The angle and the opposite side have the same name. It's just that the angle is a capital letter and the side length is a lowercase letter. So which other side do we know? The G, right? It's 7. So then the things that we have to find are angle D, angle G, and side D. We need to look at that and come up with a strategy for finding any one of those things, whichever one you want to start with. I'm first going to find side D. If you have two side lengths, you can find the other one using the Pythagorean theorem, which remember is C squared equals A squared plus B squared. But here I'm going to do D squared equals O squared minus G squared. I'm subtracting because I know the hypotenuse. When you are finding the hypotenuse, you add, but if you don't know the hypotenuse, then you subtract. So D squared is equal to 18 squared minus 7 squared. This D squared comes out to 275. And then to get the actual value of D, you take the square root, and that comes out to 16.6 if we round to the nearest tenth. And then I'm going to fill it in here, because my goal is to fill in this whole thing. And once it's all filled in, then we'll have the answer. So, Jefferson, what did you do next?
The next one, I labeled 7 as my opposite and labeled my 18 as my hypotenuse.
So you're finding angle D? No, sorry, angle G?
Yes.
Okay.
And I did that. After I found that out, I took off 90 and the answer on that one from 180.
Okay,
To
good.
get the other angle.
Sounds good. So he chose to find angle G next. You could choose D, it doesn't matter. But if you're finding G, here's the opposite over here, and here's the hypotenuse. We have both of those. Opposite and hypotenuse is which ratio? Sine.
All right.
So the sine of an angle is opposite over hypotenuse. Sine of angle G then is equal to 7 over 18. And remember how we then find angle G? It's the inverse sine of 7 over 18. Yeah, so let's call that 23. That comes out to 23 degrees.
That's G?
That's G. Because we use sine, we use 7 as the opposite. So it's the angle opposite that. And then finding the third angle is easy. If you already have 2 angles, just subtract from 180. So to get angle D, it'll be 180 minus 90 and minus 23. So it's 67 degrees. Solve this triangle. So here we also have, I'm gonna start with listing what I'm trying to find, which is angle C, angle A, and angle T, side C, side A, and side T. Once I have this list of 6 things filled out, I'll know that I'm done. So we look at what do we already know? Well, I already know angle A, that's the 90 degrees. And I already know angle T, 23.6 degrees. And I have one side length. Which side length is this? Hypotenuse, and is it C, A, or T? A. So I know A is 25, and you're right, it is the hypotenuse. So in the first question, we started with the Pythagorean theorem. We can't do that here, because you have to have 2 side lengths already to use the Pythagorean theorem. So we're not going to do that. Instead, let's start with the angle that we don't know, angle C. To find angle C, triangle angle sum theorem says all 3 angles have to add up to 180. So I'll do, for angle C, it's 180 degrees minus 90 degrees minus 23.6 degrees, and it's equal to 66.4 degrees. So this is C down here, and if we decide we want to find C, we need to look at the angle that we have, 23.6. What would you call that side C? Opposite, adjacent, or hypotenuse? Adjacent. Right, 23.6 is right here. Next to it is C. So side C, when we're looking at this angle, is the adjacent. We also know the hypotenuse. So for this one, I'm going to use cosine. Yeah. Adjacent over hypotenuse. So I'll go cosine of 23.6 degrees equals adjacent, which is C, over hypotenuse, which is 25. multiply by 25, so C is equal to 25 times the cosine of 23.6. And I get C is equal to 22.9. If it doesn't specify, I could round that to 23, but since this one had one place after the decimal, I just decided to keep one place. So 22.9. And we have one more side length to find. It's your choice whether you want to use another trig ratio or you want to use the Pythagorean theorem. Either one is fine and will give you the same answer. So I think I'm going to use the Pythagorean theorem, and I'll do t squared equals the hypotenuse, which is 25 squared, minus the other side, which is 22.9 squared. T squared comes out to be 100.6, and then when I take the square root and find t, it's 10.0. So we'll just call it 10. Now when I look at this list, everything's filled in, so I know that I've completed the question. If you make that list, you won't forget anything because you don't stop until it's all filled in. If you don't make the list, sometimes you end up forgetting one side or one angle.